Before we begin this heartwarming story, let us know where you're watching from in the comment box. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will touch your heart and leave you inspired. Aaliya Johnson was just 19, but she had already lost more than most people do in a lifetime. Her mother, her best friend, had died 2 years ago. Cancer took her slowly, painfully, and left a silence in the house that never went away. Aaliya remembered every soft whisper her mother gave her in those last days. Be strong. Don't ever let this world break your spirit. She tried. She really did. But nothing could prepare her for what happened next. Her father remarried just 8 months after her mother's funeral. The woman he brought home, Trisha, was nothing like her mother. Trisha had glossy red nails, eyes that scanned you like a threat, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Aaliya wanted to give her a chance. She tried calling her mom once. Trisha laughed in her face. "You're not my child," she said coldly, "and you never will be." From that day forward, Aaliya knew she wasn't welcome in her own home. At first, it was little things. Trisha threw away Aaliya's mother's photo from the living room. Then her clothes were moved to the storage room. Then came the cold dinners, the locked doors, the way her father stopped talking to her like he used to. Trisha's poison spread quickly. Her father changed. He used to hug her goodnight. Now he barely looked up from his phone when she walked by. He stopped saying, "I'm proud of you." He stopped being a father. Aaliya held on to her call center job like it was a lifeline. She worked night shifts just to stay away from the house. She'd sit quietly at her desk, helping strangers solve their problems, while her own life fell apart. She thought maybe, just maybe, if she worked hard enough, if she stayed silent, she could survive under that roof. But Trisha had other plans. One Friday night, Aaliya came home from her shift exhausted, her feet aching, her voice sore. She opened the front door and froze. All her clothes were stuffed into trash bags. Her books, her photo albums, her small jewelry box. Everything was dumped near the door like garbage. She blinked, thinking maybe she was dreaming, but then Trisha walked out of the kitchen, arms crossed, a smirk on her lips. "You're not a child anymore," she said. "You're an adult. It's time to go live your own life." "I what?" Aaliya stammered. "You're kicking me out?" Trisha rolled her eyes. "It's not like you contribute to this house. You're just extra weight." Aaliya looked behind her. Her father stood in the hallway, silent, his face blank, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Dad," she whispered, voice shaking, "you're really going to let her do this?" He looked away. That was the moment her heart cracked completely. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, "but maybe it's time." No hug, no fight, no explanation. Just the silence of betrayal. Aaliya didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just picked up the bags and walked out. She walked down the dark street with no destination. Her phone had 3% battery. She had $17 in her wallet. No friends close enough to call. No family left to turn to. She sat outside a closed convenience store, placing the trash bags around her like walls. A group of boys passed by, laughing. A drunk man stumbled nearby. Her heart thudded with fear, but she sat still, gripping her bag tightly. The air was sharp. Cold bit through her sleeves. She hadn't eaten since lunch. She curled up on the pavement, resting her head on one of the bags. In that moment, the world felt like it had swallowed her whole. No roof, no bed, no father, no home. She stared up at the black sky, her chest heavy with pain. She wanted to cry, scream, disappear. But then, she remembered her mother's last words. "Don't ever let this world break your spirit." Aaliya sat up slowly. She wiped her tears, and she whispered to herself, under the streetlights, "I won't break. I'll rise." Because even if no one stood beside her, she would stand for herself. Even if the world turned its back, she would face it head on. She wasn't just a girl with a broken home. She was a warrior in the making. The tiny office of Core Link call center buzzed with fluorescent lights, the kind that made everything feel cold and unwelcoming. Rows of worn-out chairs squeaked with every movement. The computers were slow. The AC barely worked. But none of that mattered to Aaliya, because for her it wasn't just a job, it was survival. She worked the night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The hours when the city slept, But her thoughts ran wild. Her headset became her world, and her voice was her only power. Every night she showed up with a tired smile and neatly tied hair, even though she barely had enough money for the bus ride home. She greeted every customer with kindness, even the ones who screamed, even the ones who hung up. She refused to be bitter. She refused to become cold like the people who had abandoned her. Her co-workers didn't know her story. They thought she was just quiet, maybe a little too polite. But Aaliya kept her pain hidden like a locked box deep in her heart. Then one night the phone rang at 2:17 a.m. She adjusted her headset and answered with her usual calm voice. Tech Plus support. This is Aaliya speaking. How can I help you tonight? The voice that replied made her sit up straighter. It wasn't angry. It wasn't rushed. It was deep, calm, and strangely magnetic. Hi, he said. This is Nathan Carter. I'm having some trouble with my laptop software. She guided him through the usual steps, efficient and professional. But when the issue was fixed, he didn't hang up. Instead, he said something unexpected. You sound tired. Long shift? Aaliya paused. Clients didn't ask personal questions. Ever. Yeah, she admitted softly. It's a long one. Do you work every night? He asked. She hesitated, unsure whether to keep talking. But something about his tone felt safe. I do, she said. It pays the bills. He chuckled, a low, warm sound. I get that. I work late too. People think billionaires sleep on yachts all day. Truth is, most nights I'm just behind a screen. She smiled even though he couldn't see it. Billionaire? She teased lightly. That's a bold claim. I guess you'll just have to believe me, he replied, amused. And then, he asked about her name, her favorite book, what music she liked. No man had ever cared to ask before. She told him she liked calm piano songs and romance novels she couldn't afford. He told her he played the piano, and his favorite book was one his mother gave him when he was 10. They spoke for 10 minutes that night. The next night, he called again. And the next. Soon it became routine. Every night around 2 a.m., her phone would ring, and his name would flash across the screen. Nathan Carter. She started to wait for it. Her heart beat a little faster every time the line connected. They didn't talk about work anymore. They talked about dreams. She told him she once wanted to go to college, that she dreamed of being a writer, that she loved stars, but city lights always drowned them out. He listened, really listened. He told her about his pressure-filled life, that his success had cost him friendships, trust, and peace, that people looked at him and saw money, not the man inside. And Aaliya, she never treated him differently. To her, he was just Nathan, a voice in the dark. Her voice softened his world. His words lit up hers. One night he said, I don't know what you look like, but I feel like I know you. And she whispered, sometimes the heart doesn't need eyes. They laughed. They paused. The silence between them felt thick with something unspoken. Aaliya didn't dare hope. Men like Nathan Carter didn't fall for girls like her. She lived in a rented room with peeling walls and shared a bathroom with strangers. He probably had 5 homes, a staff, and a world full of women chasing his money. But he chose to talk to her night after night. And in those calls, he never once asked for anything. He never flirted cheap. He never crossed lines. He made her feel like she mattered, like her voice was more than a customer service tool, like she was someone worth knowing, worth remembering. As the nights passed, she found herself smiling before each shift. She started humming on her way to work. She scribbled down funny things he said on napkins and saved them in her wallet like treasures. And Nathan? He started waking up early just to hear her voice. He canceled meetings that ran too late. He started walking away from empty conversations with socialites just so he could sit in silence and wait for the clock to strike 2 a.m. Neither of them realized it yet, but something powerful was happening. Something neither money nor tragedy could stop. A connection formed in the most unlikely way. A billionaire who had everything, and a girl who had nothing but her voice. 2 worlds, one phone call at a time, falling into something deeper than either of them expected. Aaliya was halfway through her night shift when her screen blinked with an incoming call. Nathan Carter. But this time, His voice wasn't calm like usual. It was different. Lower, uncertain, a little rough around the edges. "Hey," he said, "I'm flying into your city tonight. Just for one night. Would you meet me for dinner?" Aaliya's breath caught. Meet him? In person? She hadn't even thought he'd ever ask. She touched her heart. It was pounding so hard it almost hurt. I, I don't know," she whispered. "What if it's awkward? What if you don't like what you see?" Nathan's reply was gentle. "I already like what I feel. I just want to see the face that goes with the voice I've come to care about." Aaliya sat in silence, her fingers trembling slightly. Then she nodded, even though he couldn't see. "Yeah," she said. "Okay." The hotel was one of the quiet, expensive ones, tucked away from the city noise. Aaliya stood outside its doors for 10 minutes before walking in. She had on her best dress, something she found at a thrift store 2 months ago. It was soft blue with tiny pearl buttons and a thread loose at the sleeve. Her shoes didn't match perfectly. Her purse was old, but her eyes were glowing with quiet courage. Inside, the hotel lounge shimmered with soft golden light. Piano music played low in the background. Waiters walked silently like ghosts in black and white. And then she saw him. Nathan stood near the bar, gray suit, no tie, hair slightly tousled. He wasn't flashy, just clean, calm, confident. But when his eyes found her, he froze. His breath caught. Then he smiled. Not the polite billionaire smile people give when cameras are flashing. This one was real, warm, stunned, like he'd just seen something he didn't know he'd been waiting for. "You're beautiful," he whispered as she walked toward him. Aaliya blushed, her heart pounding so loud it echoed in her ears. They sat at a quiet table by the window. The city lights twinkled far below, but neither of them looked outside. They only looked at each other. They talked for hours, laughed over little things, shared secrets they hadn't even told themselves yet. She told him how her mother used to sing her to sleep, how she still missed her voice. He told her how money made him lonely, how women often pretended to care, only to chase his name, his wallet, his fame. "You don't feel like the world," he told her. "You feel like peace." And for once, Aaliya felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was glowing. After dessert, he stood up slowly and said, "I have a room upstairs. I'd love for you to stay. But listen." He paused, his eyes soft, full of something fragile and real. "You don't have to. I won't be upset if you say no. I just want more time with you, even if it's just sitting beside you." Aaliya looked at him. Not the money, not the hotel, not the world he came from. Just him, his kindness, his honesty, his patience. And something inside her, something soft and quiet, whispered, "Say yes. Let someone care for once." So she nodded and followed him upstairs. The room wasn't flashy. It was warm, simple, clean. She sat on the edge of the bed. He sat beside her, and for a moment there was silence. Not awkward silence, safe silence. He didn't touch her like others had tried. He didn't rush, didn't demand. Instead, he reached for her hand, held it gently. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me." That night he kissed her forehead, held her in his arms. No pressure, no expectations. Just warmth, just safety. And for the first time in years, Aaliya closed her eyes and slept without fear, without pain, without nightmares. She didn't feel used or hidden or second to anyone. She felt seen, wanted, maybe loved. The morning came too soon. Nathan was already dressed when she opened her eyes. "I have to catch a flight," he said softly, brushing hair from her face. "But I'll call you tonight. I promise." She sat up, heart already missing him. "Okay," she whispered, forcing a smile. He leaned down, kissed her gently, then walked away. That night her phone didn't ring. Neither did the next, or the one after. Days passed, then weeks. Silence. Total, crushing silence. She checked her phone every hour, checked the number, called it once, but it went straight to voicemail. She told herself he was busy, that something came up, that billionaires didn't live by clocks like the rest of the world. But deep down, her heart knew. He was gone. vanished. And with him, he took the fragile hope she'd just begun to believe in. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She was just broken. But she didn't cry. She stood at the mirror one night, hands on her belly, and whispered, "I'm not alone." Because inside her, two tiny heartbeats were growing. Aaliya had always been strong, but the strength she needed now was unlike anything she'd ever known. It started with a strange feeling in her body, dizziness, nausea, a pounding heart even when she was sitting still. She thought it was stress, heartbreak, maybe even grief, but something inside whispered differently. One morning, after her shift, she bought a small test from the pharmacy on the corner. She took it in the tiny bathroom of a gas station. She stared at it, frozen. Two pink lines, positive, pregnant. She couldn't move. She couldn't even cry. Her fingers shook as she held her belly. "I'm going to be a mother." Then came the ultrasound. Two heartbeats. Two. She sat in the doctor's office, stunned. Twins. Nathan Carter's twins. She tried calling him, tried tracking him through the call center system. She messaged the old number. No response. She begged the tech department for any trace of his file. Nothing. Nathan Carter had vanished like a shadow. Rich, powerful, untouchable. He left her with two pieces of himself and no way to find him. But Aaliya didn't break. She didn't scream or curse or give up. Instead, she packed her bags, took what little savings she had and moved far away. From the city, the memories, the pain. She found a small town 2 hours from nowhere. There was one grocery store, one coffee shop, and a dusty little bookstore tucked between two brick walls. That bookstore became her safe place. She got a job there, arranging novels, reading stories to children, breathing in the scent of old pages. It didn't pay much, but it was enough. And the owner, Mrs. Elkins, gave her a tiny apartment above the shop in exchange for extra hours. It wasn't much, but it was hers. 9 months later, Aaliya gave birth alone in a county hospital. Two boys, Leo and Liam. When the nurse placed them in her arms, she wept. They had his nose, his mouth, his sharp little jaw, but they had her eyes, software brown, brave. She kissed their foreheads one by one and whispered, "I'll love you enough for both of us." No hate in her heart, no regret, only love. The years passed in slow, beautiful chaos. She worked during the day, read stories to the boys at night. She taught them to say please and thank you, to share cookies, to be kind. They didn't have a mansion. They didn't have toys with flashing lights or robot dogs. But they had laughter. They had bedtime kisses and early morning pancakes. They had a mother who never gave up. Leo was the quiet one, gentle, thoughtful, always holding his brother's hand. Liam was bold, loud, fearless, wild like sunshine. Every time they smiled, Aaliya saw Nathan. Every time they ran to her, she reminded herself to stay strong. People asked, "Where's their father?" She always smiled softly and said, "He's not with us." No stories, no lies, no bitterness, just silence. She wondered many nights if she should try to find him. She had no proof, no number, no address. She had only memories. But the world doesn't run on memories. So she stayed quiet, built her world without him, until one ordinary Tuesday, everything changed. The boys had started preschool. Aaliya had packed them lunches shaped like smiley faces. She was restocking books when the bell above the door jingled. A man stepped in, tall, sharp suit, a little older now, eyes scanning the room. Her heart stopped. Nathan Carter. She dropped the book in her hands. He turned toward the sound. Their eyes met. Time froze. 4 years of silence came crashing down in 1 second. His lips parted. His hands dropped to his sides. But Aaliya, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and neither could he, because standing behind her, holding each other's hands, were two boys with his face. The morning felt strange. The sky was clear. The air smelled like change. Aaliya was sipping tea, watching Leo and Liam build towers from cereal boxes when her phone buzzed. She opened the news app casually, but what she saw made her heart freeze. Nathan Carter to launch Children's Foundation in Denver. Open event. All guests welcome. A photo sat below the headline. Nathan standing proudly, smiling in a crisp suit. Aaliya's breath caught. Her fingers shook. For 4 years, she had searched the faces of strangers, hoping one day she might see his again. And now he was right there, alive, successful, within reach. She stared at the screen for a long time, her heart pounding so hard she thought. The boys could hear it. Leo tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, why do you look scared?" She blinked, then smiled. "No, sweetheart. I think we're going on a trip." The next morning, she packed a small bag, 2 tiny jackets, snacks, juice boxes, a photo of the boys from their 3rd birthday. She bought 3 bus tickets to Denver with money she had saved for emergencies. This was one. Aaliya didn't wear makeup. She didn't dress fancy. She wore what she always wore, because this was not about showing off. This was about the truth. The boys slept on her lap the entire way, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. When they reached the city, Aaliya could hardly breathe. The event center was enormous. Banners, photographers, people in expensive clothes. She stood far behind the crowd, nervous. What if he rejected them? What if he said they weren't his? What if he didn't remember her at all? She held Leo's hand tightly. Her heart was beating like thunder. Then the crowd grew louder. Nathan was coming. He stepped out from behind the glass doors, tall, calm, glowing with quiet power. He shook hands, waved, smiled at cameras. And then Leo slipped from Aaliya's hand. She reached out, "Leo!" But he was already running. "Daddy!" Nathan stopped. His body stiffened like stone. The crowd went silent. Time froze. He turned slowly toward the tiny voice. Leo stood just feet away, smiling wide. Then Liam ran after his brother. And when the 2 boys stood side by side, the resemblance was undeniable. It hit Nathan like a train. His face drained of color. People around him gasped. Cameras clicked. Reporters murmured. Aaliya stepped forward. Her legs trembled, but her voice didn't. "Nathan, these are your sons." He turned to her, his mouth open, eyes wide. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "You had twins?" She nodded. Tears filled her eyes. "You never came back," she said softly. "You vanished. I didn't know how to reach you." Nathan looked down at the boys. Leo stared up at him, unsure. Liam smiled, holding his twin's hand. Nathan's knees buckled. He dropped down beside them. His fingers shook as he reached out, afraid to touch. "My sons. Oh God." He let out a sound that wasn't quite a cry, not quite a laugh, just raw pain and wonder, mixed together. He pulled them both into his arms, held them tight, and the boys let him. Aaliya stood silently, watching. Her eyes were red, but her face was calm. Then Nathan looked up at her. His whole soul seemed to tremble. "Aaliya, I thought of you every day," he choked. "But I lost your number. I called the call center and they said you'd left. I hired people to look, but I didn't even know your last name. I was lost." Tears streamed down his face now. "I didn't know I had a family out there. I didn't know." Aaliya blinked and finally said, "Now you do." The cameras around them clicked wildly. Reporters shouted questions, but Nathan didn't care. He only saw her and them. Then in front of everyone, he stood, walked to Aaliya, and whispered the words that changed everything. "Please, come home with me. You and our sons. Be my family. Be my wife." Aaliya froze. Gasps rang out in the crowd. Leo and Liam stood beside them, looking up with wide, hopeful eyes. She stared at Nathan. His eyes weren't powerful now. They were pleading. And for the first time, she saw the man, not the billionaire. The man who had fallen in love with her voice. The man who now knelt in front of her heart. She covered her mouth. Tears fell down her cheeks. And she whispered one word. "Yes." The day after everything changed, the world was still in shock. It was all anyone could talk about. The billionaire who had vanished, the mother who raised his twins alone, the truth revealed in front of millions. Nathan Carter, the man who had built his empire, was now at the center of a different story, one about family, redemption, and love. The morning air was thick with anticipation when Nathan called a press conference. News outlets from around the world crowded into the grand ballroom where Nathan stood behind a podium. He wasn't wearing his usual crisp suit. He was dressed in something more personal, more vulnerable, a simple shirt and trousers. The crowd murmured, waiting for the billionaire to speak. They expected a scandal, a fight, a bitter battle over custody, a lawsuit. But what they got instead was a story they never saw coming. Nathan's eyes scanned the room. Then he looked directly at the cameras and spoke in a voice that trembled with emotion. I want to tell the world something. Aaliya, sitting in the front row with Leo and Liam on her lap, held her breath. These boys, Nathan continued, his voice steady, but filled with undeniable love, are mine. They are my children, and they will never again know what it's like to be without me. The reporters were silent. Aaliya looked at the boys who were giggling with excitement. They didn't fully understand the weight of this moment, but they understood one thing. Their daddy was finally here. Nathan's voice softened. Aaliya, he paused, taking a step toward her. You never asked for anything. You never expected anything from me. You raised them alone, with grace, with strength, and with so much love. You gave them everything. You gave them a home. Tears welled up in Aaliya's eyes. She didn't expect this. This wasn't the man she thought she'd lost. This wasn't the cold billionaire from her call center days. This was someone who had found his heart again. Someone who had found his family. Nathan continued, his gaze never leaving her. I lost time. I lost years of their lives. I can never get that back. But I don't want to lose you. I can't. Not now. Not ever. The room was silent. Aaliya's hands shook in her lap. Her heart felt like it was going to burst from her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. The world was watching. This wasn't just a press conference, this was the beginning of everything. Nathan stepped forward, and the next words that came from his lips changed her life forever. I want to be more than their father. I want to be your husband. I want to be the man who stands beside you, forever. And with that, Nathan Carter did something no one expected. He dropped to one knee. The cameras flashed. The room held its breath. The boys gasped. Nathan looked up at Aaliya, his eyes full of love, fear, and hope. He held a simple velvet box in his hand, the kind that held dreams. Aaliya, he whispered, his voice cracking slightly, will you marry me? Aaliya's heart skipped a beat. Her hands flew to her mouth, a mix of shock, disbelief, and happiness crossing her face. She had waited so long to hear him say these words. The crowd erupted in applause. But in that moment, Aaliya only saw him, only heard him. The tears in her eyes shimmered, and her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, she said, barely believing the moment was real. Yes, Nathan. Yes. The crowd exploded in cheers. The reporters, the photographers, and the spectators who had been waiting for drama instead got something they never expected. Love, redemption, and a family reunited. Leo and Liam clapped with joy, laughing as they ran to their mother and their father. Nathan pulled them into his arms, hugging them both so tightly it seemed like he would never let them go. The world had witnessed something extraordinary. But for Aaliya, this wasn't just a proposal. This wasn't just a public spectacle. This was the moment when everything changed. She looked at Nathan, the man who had once been a stranger to her, and now was the father of her children, the love of her life. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for choosing us. Nathan smiled, his eyes full of gratitude and love. I don't deserve you, he said softly, wiping away a tear that had fallen down her cheek. But I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving that I will never let you down again. The press conference ended in a whirlwind of excitement, but for Aaliya and Nathan, the journey was just beginning. Together they would build a life, not based on wealth or fame, but on the love they had always shared, even when they hadn't known it. And for the rest of the world, this story was a reminder that love can heal even the deepest wounds. A reminder that families come in all shapes, sizes, and stories. A reminder that no matter how lost you may feel, there is always a way back home. As the crowd dispersed, Nathan took Aaliya's hand in his, leading her and their children into their new future. the future they would create together. And as they walked toward the future, Aaliya looked at the world around them, knowing that together they would fight against anything that tried to tear them apart. In a world that often judged based on wealth, race, and status, they had shown the world that love was the one thing that truly mattered, and nothing could ever break that. Their wedding was held at the same hotel where they first met. Simple, beautiful, powerful. Leo and Liam walked down the aisle as ring bearers. Nathan's voice cracked as he made his vow. To the woman who had nothing, but gave me everything. In the speech that followed, he said, money doesn't make someone worthy, love does. Racism, class, and judgment nearly stole my family from me. Let us choose love, not division, Aaliya cried that day. But this time, they were happy tears. She had given him twins, and he gave her forever.